Welcome to a Fresh Perspective podcast, catering to the latest in ingredient trends, consumer insights, and food news. Brought to you by Corbion.
Hello, and welcome to a Fresh Perspective podcast, the podcast where we talk about everything food. I'm Jenny Kulzer, your host, and I'm joined today by Robb MacKie. Robb is the former president of the American Bakers Association. He's currently serving in a specially appointed role to assist in development of Food Innovation Center at Kansas State University. Welcome, Robb.
Well, thank you, Jenny. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, tell me a little bit about this special role.
So I have been brought on after conversations earlier this year with the new president, Rich Linton at Kansas State University, who is a food guy, first time in their history. And then also the long-serving dean of the College of Agriculture asked me to come in and help to build and restore industry engagement with the College of Agriculture, particularly the Grain Science and Industry program, and also to develop support and really importantly, to get the industry engaged in building out a very exciting, bold, and ambitious global center for grain and food innovation. It's going to be this multidisciplinary center that includes baking, milling, feed, pet food, but also engineering, business, food science, a whole group. It's like a campus within a campus. And it's really designed to put K-State head and shoulders above everybody else in the food space in terms of science and research and talent development.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I was reading a little bit before we got together here today, and it seems that that's kind of been a miss in the industry up till now, right?
Yeah. So the workforce development, having been with the American Bakers Association for almost 30 years, 17 as president and CEO, it was a long-standing issue, but certainly in the last 5 years, it has been the number one, number two, and number three issue facing not only the baking industry, but the entire food industry and manufacturing for that matter. And there's some underlying demographic changes that are going on, societal changes that are going on. So the industry has been impacted like anybody else in this space. And certainly the pandemic has not helped.
Right.
And so it's just been a real challenging time. We did a study that we partnered with the American Society of Baking and ABA, did a study probably about 7 years ago where we looked at, what was the talent pipeline that the industry was going to need to be successful in 10 years. And it was estimated that 52,000 vacancies at all different levels in the industry were going to need to be filled. And, as we saw at the big industry trade show last September, the innovation that's going on in ingredients and equipment and across the board means the skills that are going to be required are going to be different than the skills of 10 years ago in order to be successful, just because of the vast changes that are going on, in the food manufacturing space.
Right. And I would think that maybe some of those skills would be cross skills. So you would almost need 2 degrees or 3 degrees in order to get the right skill sets.
Yes. And because I think it's, again, multidisciplinary problem solving. And really the challenge is combining the art of baking and the science of baking and bringing those together. And in a combined way that makes sense. But also you just think about the technology and the automation that's going on. And, we could talk about AI at some point, because that's already having an impact on the food industry and will continue to increase, in some good ways and some ways that the industry just needs to think about now to be ready to go when it finally gets here.
Yeah. And, I think we talk about science and technology a lot at Corbion. And I think that people that even ended up in the roles that they're in today have done it through, they started in one discipline, right? Either in science or technology or even in the art side of baking, and sort of gained the rest of their knowledge through experience rather than, doing what it seems that you're doing at K-State, which is learn the basics of it in one place and then build on that experience, which seems like an incredible opportunity.
No, it really is. And I do think, Corbion is one of the companies that does it well. Kroger's another company. They've been very proactive identifying people with, some of those basic problem solving skills. And then they move them around across disciplines. And they're very proactive about it. And frankly, it helps to keep engaged workforce. So I think of it as you're developing a highly skilled person in baking, milling, or feed or pet food or food science, but you're adding to them. You're adding to the management. The thing we've heard from industry over and over again is, these are great folks, highly skilled, very talented folks, but they're going to be managing teams. These are the future leaders of the industry. And as I used to say when I was running AVA and I would speak at K-State to the students, I'd say, you're my future board. At someday, you're going to be on the board of directors because that means you're running companies. And so I think that holistic approach, being able to manage people, is one of the biggest skills that's sought after, in business today, but especially in the food business. So it's the technical, it's the people skills, it's the business, understanding a business plan. And then it's also how to do project management and problem solving. So it's a totally different environment than 25 years ago.
Yeah. And you mentioned COVID. And I think one of the things I think that COVID has done for the workers is given them more of a voice, because, once COVID, I don't want to say it's over because it's never going to be over.
Right.
But once people kind of started going back to work, this huge shift happened where people said, no, we're not going back to the office. There's all these companies that say we don't have to go back. We're going to go work for them. I wonder what the expectations. So when we start looking at, okay, we're going to create this new space for you to learn in, when we look at the companies then that want to hire those people, how do we kind of marry those expectations together and create, the right person or the right skill set?
Right. Well, and I think it's a bit of a misnomer in the sense that, and I can remember a very famous meeting we had with the CDC where they wanted to know the baking industry and the food industry's return to work plan. And I said, I'm sorry, 6 months in, we've been at work. We're continuing to produce. We
never stopped.
You didn't see empty store shelves, because people were making food. So I think, but your point is very well taken, Jenny, is how do we adapt? How does the industry become more flexible? That being said, you're not going to be able to produce, incredible products, whether they're bread or cookies or crackers or, pies or what have you. You're not going to be able to do that at home. So there's going to have to be kind of a meeting of the minds. And I think one of the things the companies are going to have to do is, depending on the area within the company, they're going to have to meet current, but also future employees kind of where they are in their lives, what's important to them. That flexibility is going to be really, really important. And I think one of the things that I've absolutely loved about the food industry is, and it marries up so well with the generations that are coming into the workforce or have recently come in, is we did a study with NDP and asked them what was the number one reason to accept the position. And it was purpose, having an opportunity to have purpose in their lives and to grow professionally in their careers. And I can't think of a better place than the food industry. You're feeding the world, you're feeding your local community, your state, the world. And K-State really has the entire supply chain out there, and you get to see it live, up close and personal. And so that's been one of the exciting parts about this project, is sort of see that piece come to life and to really energize this generation that's going to come up with new and exciting products, new and exciting manufacturing processes that will then allow hopefully stuff to be produced in a more flexible way, and a more environmentally safe way and things like that. So these are exciting times, a lot of challenges, but I have great confidence, that this generation, particularly, having just been out at K-State and seeing the graduating class, I mean, there's some very, very sharp people that are going to change this industry for the better.
That's so exciting. And it's exciting to know that they care about purpose. How wonderful is it to work for a place that you believe in, right?
Yes.
And all of us have worked jobs where you didn't believe, where you did the job and you went home and you were like, thank goodness I'm home. But to work in a place where you truly believe in the mission and you actually feel like you're contributing, that's not a job. That's a career. That's a life path.
Yes.
And I feel that way about working in food, and I don't even bake anything. I'm in marketing in food,
right?
But I'm still part of the mission. I'm still part of the job. And so to be able to even be part of any part of that organism is, it drives me. So
Jenny, it's so exciting, and you and I and others are in it. And, I think we're probably a little too close to it, to be honest with you, because we understand it. We understand that somebody graduating out of K-State, 98% job hire rate. And some of them are being hired at rates that are close to a starting lawyer. By the way, without all the debt. So, all the parents listening here, take note.
Right.
But, I do think, the biggest challenge that we have found in the food industry is we have to tell our story better. You drive down the interstate and you see these big boxes and nobody knows what's going on. I think the industry is starting to understand they got to demystify this process. And people love the food industry. They love baking. They love, making cookies and ice cream and all that stuff. And so I think you've got to tap into that and tell the story a lot better. And so I've suggested that, and some of this is happening. Innovative companies are pairing up the HR department with the marketing department because you're not selling the product, you're selling the company to a wide swath of prospective employees, some of which you may not even know you're touching. And so it's an opportunity, I think, to rethink that relationship within an innovative company. You're starting to see more of that.
That's awesome. And it's funny because I've actually recently been added to an HR team as the marketing person to help with recruitment.
Oh, that's fantastic. Right.
I mean, that's exactly what we're trying to do, right? Is to look at this from a storyteller's perspective and to get people fired up about truly what it is we're doing. And we're not faking it. We're walking the walk, right? And I think, what you're saying is so on target. So that's one thing that people that companies can do. Do you have, what other advice do you have for other companies that really do want to attract more talent?
Yeah, I think, we could do a whole nother episode on this. A couple of things that are happening, which are very exciting. And I do want to put in one last shameless plug for K-State at the end.
Yes.
But I think, understanding what your reputation is as an employer. There's plenty of resources that are out there, and find out what people are saying about your company. And it's sort of like, an exam. You throw out the worst, you throw out the best grade, and find the meat in the middle. And then you have to, proactively address any of those shortcomings. So that shows that you care. It shows that the employees have a voice, in their workplace. So I think that's one very simple step that could be done tomorrow. Yeah. I also think, though, that companies need to partner with local, and Corbion does a great job with the CAPS program right there in Johnson County, Kansas. And, that type of relationship and building that relationship. And there are other examples with local STEM programs. There's bakers in the Chicago parochial schools that are working, to develop talent. There's another company in Pensacola, New Jersey that built a baking school in the inner city so that they can start to just demystify this, but also hopefully attract some talent. So all of these things are very helpful, but it's about building a long lasting relationship. It can't, no offense, Jenny, it can't be a quick marketing program, move on to the next shiny thing. It's got to be lasting, and you want to be out there, in the public sphere. My shameless plug, I would say, is one of the things that the new president at Kansas State done, which I think is going to be groundbreaking, is he's gotten a waiver for anybody that's a non-Kansas resident to come to K-State, and it's a sliding scale based on GPA. They can come to Kansas State at in-state tuition rates. And so that means, graduates from all over the world. And we had a global food company was in Manhattan about 2 months ago. And when they heard about this, all of their plants around the world were thinking, we need to get something to our HR folks so they can talk to their local high schools, because it's all that family connection, and create that pipeline into Kansas State. And then they'll probably go back to wherever, Argentina, India, South Africa, wherever. But they're also going to go back to Chicago, and they're going to go back to Kansas City, and they're going to go back to Dallas or wherever. And so what a great opportunity to build on that network that already exists around the country, feed folks into Kansas State. They can go back to the local communities. And with, again, just a fulfilling career, lifelong opportunity. What a great opportunity.
Man, you heard it here. Go to K-State, apply. I mean, you from anywhere in the world, right?
Anywhere in the world.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And sadly, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining me. This was incredible.
Jenny, thank you so much for raising awareness on this important topic. And I'm serious. Love to come back and talk to you at more length, because there's so many other things that are going on. And the industry's figuring it out, which is exciting. But thanks for having me.
Yeah, let's do it. Absolutely. And don't forget, preserve what matters.
Thank you for listening to a Fresh Perspective podcast, brought to you by Corbion. Until next time, preserve what matters.